Welcome to Coffee Talk with Zen Mama Llama. Talking about toxic people today, toxic relationships. In fact, I'm just going to go through some stories in my life because I've lived it. True story. I've lived it. I've had some very toxic boyfriends in my past. Toxic friends as well, but toxic boyfriends probably is my cup of tea. So, what are some red flags? Do you know some red flags? If somebody makes you feel bad about yourself on a consistent basis, that's a red flag. Sweet kitten. He just wants to sleep. Sorry. He's really cute, though. Yeah, you're really cute. He is. Okay, so back to you guys. When you leave that person, are you just like, oh my gosh, I need a nap. My brain is exhausted. I can't think another thought. Might be a red flag. I had a boyfriend one time who was very controlling, but it didn't come off that way in the beginning. I should have realized it. I specifically told him I wasn't interested in him. And he's like, but I want to date you. And he was very persistent. Unfortunately, it was a neighbor, so I couldn't get away, really. And he wore me down. But I was very adamant I did not want to be in a relationship for personal reasons that I knew that were going to come into play at some point anyway. Like, I wanted to have kids. He had a vasectomy. Slight problem, right? Not for him, though. He could talk to anybody. He was like a used car salesman. He's amazing. He could talk about anything. Made me feel good about myself. Made me feel amazing about myself. Would spend hours on the phone with me. And at that point in my life, I needed that. I felt low. I didn't feel worthy. I wasn't happy with myself. I had gained some weight. And I just, in general, was miserable. I was miserable with my job. I did not love myself. That key right there. I did not love myself. When you do not love yourself, you open up a world of problems for yourself. Like, I wish I could explain how many problems happen, but if you don't love yourself, you can probably close your eyes and go ahead and tell yourself, go ahead and be like, oh, I know exactly what she's talking about. Because if you don't love yourself, you're miserable. And you're miserable in every situation, and you will always find somebody to blame. And at that point in life, I was a victim. I played the victim. I blamed everything on everybody else. So when I found this man who actually really liked me, and he was cute. He was really cute. He was attractive. He spent lots of money on me. And at that point in my life, that was pretty important. I wanted somebody who could provide. Because I really had wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And so that was the life I had envisioned. And he had the house that I wanted. He had the car that I wanted. He was so nice. So nice. I mean, nice and generous. And it didn't matter if the guys he worked with made fun of him for being on the phone with me all the time. He didn't care. He let me drive his car, give me an extra cell phone if I needed it. Really, really put up a really good front of how amazing he was going to be. But I just couldn't get past this gut feeling. I just kept ignoring it because I'm like, what's my problem? Why would I not like somebody who is this nice? What is my problem? Sorry, I have this paper that just keeps flying because I've got a fan on. Sorry. Anyway, so I'm like, what? And then one day, I just didn't, I didn't see the red flag. I knew there was a gut, but I didn't, and there he goes. But I just didn't I didn't want to really think about what that red flag was. I thought it was because he had kids, and that's not what I wanted. I thought it was because he had a vasectomy, and that's not what I wanted. When I say I ignored myself, I ignored myself. Like, it was bad. Well, he was very, very giving. I did nonprofits at the time, and he would write me a check for whatever I needed to make my goal. Like, little did I know, he was living paycheck to paycheck. I had no idea. None. He paid for everything in cash. That's great. But he did that because he would be in credit card debt if he had credit cards. He did that because, or maybe he was in credit card debt and I didn't even know. I just know that that mortgage at the house was more than anybody should have to pay. But I didn't know this at the time. At the time, I just saw everything he was doing nice for me. He even talked me into moving in with him. But something told me that this still wasn't right. I never gave up my apartment. I never fully moved in. My cat and dog came over with me. We lived as a family. But I didn't pay bills. I just lived there. So I was still paying my bills. So I couldn't afford to help anything else out. I was still paying bills. So I didn't really move in. I was just staying there. Well, one day, train of thought, right? Train of thought is one way. One day his brother was over and I'm talking to his brother just like I would talk to anybody. I'm being friendly. I'm being nice. And he starts accusing me of liking his brother and flirting with his brother. What? You? Okay. Again, one red flag. Let it go. Didn't have any friends. His friend was his brother. Still didn't catch on. Like, I still didn't think anything of it because he was really charismatic. Why would he not have friends? But then I went out with friends one night and he was working and he happened to drive by my house and realize my car wasn't home at midnight and blew up my phone. And this is the days before your phone was glued to your hip. I think I had like a flip phone still. So it was in my car. I just didn't use it. We didn't use it. There used to be a time, kids, let me just school you real quick. There used to be a time when we didn't keep our phone glued to us. We actually left it places. I know, crazy. We actually talked to each other. We didn't text. Crazy. There was a time that you didn't want to text because it was like T9. Let's just say things have come a far long way. Thank God I didn't date him now because he would have fucking GPS my shit. Like, it would have been bad. Anyway, but I was literally with friends. I was with friends. I was like 29 years old. I lived on my own. I was coming home to my house at night. What the hell? I didn't get home until like 3 a.m. He was waiting for me. He was sitting on my back porch waiting for me. You didn't answer your phone. I left work thinking something was wrong with you. I was at a party with my friend. Okay, so I started going, oh, there's something wrong. The jealousy's rough. He would pick a fight with me for no reason and like scream at me and like yell things that were just not nice. That's another red flag. If somebody is jealous all the time, and they yell at you all the time, or overly defensive when you say anything to them, that's a sign. So at this point, I'm like, oh, this isn't good, but I'm kind of stuck. Like, I'm starting to realize he's toxic. I'm starting to realize he's probably narcissistic. And shit, I'm not getting out of this relationship easily. Like, those are the thoughts that started going through my head. And then my neighbor one day, we were upstairs hanging out, and his ex-girlfriend, who's a lunatic, was trying to come up to my apartment, so I had locked the doors. Well, she went around and told my boyfriend that me and my neighbor were having sex in my apartment. So he busted down my doors. We were just sitting on the couch, like on opposite couches even. What the fuck? He's like, she told me. I was like, and you believed it? Like, you're a lunatic. And then he like tried to bring it back and try to like guilt trip me. And if you weren't up there by yourself with him, I wouldn't have thought those things. And blaming me. That's another toxic trait, y'all. Blaming somebody for something that they didn't do or couldn't have done. That's toxic. That's gaslighting. You don't want to be with somebody who does that to you. And then, so at this point, I'm really like, fuck, I've got to get out of this relationship. And I talked to my neighbor about it. I'm like, I'm not getting out. He goes, Jamie, I'm kind of worried about your safety at this point. He goes, you've got me on speed dial. You call me. I'm like, okay. Well, the final straw, I was at work. I worked late. I was helping a coworker out at her fundraiser. He knew I was at work. He talked to me on the phone, but he heard a boy's voice in the background because I was working and there were volunteers who one happened to be male. So when I got to his house that night for dinner, he was screaming at me, screaming that I was disrespectful and I should have been home for dinner. And basically micromanaging my life at that point. I was like, what the fuck just happened? And so I don't even know what I said, but I said something enough to piss him off. And he's like, that's it. We are done. We're broken up. And I was like, all right, this is my fucking chance. Called my neighbor. I said, we just broke up. Can you come help me move the rest of my stuff out? And he was like, absolutely. Walked over. We moved all my shit out that night, put it up in my apartment, and done. That motherfucker came crawling back. I'm good. And I never went back. Because why? You set that boundary up and you don't go back when it's a toxic person. Because they will not change. Hear me. They will not change. A year later, he was still trying. He was still trying to get me back. I can't be friends with you. I'm going to want you. Then we don't need to be friends because we're not friends. Bye. I finally had to break ties with everything and just ignore his text to make that happen. So if you are in a toxic relationship and you need to get out, reach out to somebody. Let them know what's happening, because if something happens to you, somebody needs to know. Don't let them gaslight you. Don't let them piss you off enough where you do something that injures yourself. Don't do it. Just don't. Walk away. They are not worth it. I don't care how much they tell you you're beautiful and that they love you. If they act like that once, they're going to do it again and again and again, because it's who they are at the core. Mine could have ended so much worse. I am very thankful that it didn't. Know the signs and get out. And if you need to, make them have a meltdown to break up with you so you can get out. And when they do not go back. Take that and run. Take that as a sign that the universe is saying that you need to live a happy life and get out of there. Seriously. Stay strong, girls and boys, because boys can have toxic relationships too. Don't do it. Get out. If somebody asks to borrow money and never gives it back to you, don't let them borrow money again. Don't hang around them. They're just going to do it again. Somebody who uses you is always going to use you. Somebody who treats you badly is always going to treat you badly. Somebody who's super jealous and can't control themselves is always going to be super jealous and can't control themselves. Rarely do people actually see their faults and try to change. Some do, but most don't. And you cannot trust them not to revert back. Don't endanger your life for love, because that's not love. Somebody who loves you wants you safe, who will never hurt you, that wants to protect you, wants to love you, and wants you to be happy. That's love. Know the difference. Bye, y'all.